If you can, that'd
Yep.
be good.
Yep.
I think Harry probably got, I'm sure Harry got it, so.
Okay.
Oh my God. I know, my friend's kid's school was just canceled because of influenza A outbreak. No, I think we have a ton of Okay, we'll get started in about a minute. Is that your computer or mine? Me. Okay.
I'm gonna mute it, so.
Are there oranges over in the? No, it's okay. I'll check. Hopefully 2 packets of snacks would be enough if my blood sugar does go low. Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to call this regular meeting of Monday, February 3rd to order. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, we begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land through the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. Okay, with that, we will move on to our roll call from Benjamin.
Yes, and good evening. Commissioner Werner? Here. Commissioner Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson? Here. Thank you. Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell? Here. And Mayor Shamrow?
Here. Okay, with a few of ours trailing in here in their winter gear, we'll move on to any announcements from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Shamrow. I have 2 announcements this evening. First, some strategic planning updates. We're in an active phase of the strategic action planning process. As a reminder, there is still a community survey open and available until February 14th. Additionally, the community focus group sessions will be held between February 18th and 20th, and that will continue the discussions on strategic pillars that were developed with the community session in January. The survey and more information on the focus groups can be found on the city's project webpage under strategic planning, or a plug, last Friday's Bay Brief. And second, the city celebrated a very important milestone today. We celebrated the opening of the new senior center with a ribbon cutting ceremony. We're proud to celebrate a space for our senior community that fosters healthy connections and also has the building serve as a model for sustainability as it meets the city electrification policy with no natural gas running into the building. Look for information on a larger community celebration in the spring, and I'd especially like to thank the city and county commissioners who joined us today, as well as former mayors Jim Carruthers and Richard Lewis, both who championed the project. And I believe I heard about a number of fundraising chicken dinners were mentioned today. And also thank you, Mayor Shamrow, for your inspiring remarks and everyone who contributed to making this building a reality. It was a really nice event.
I think
Thank you.
almost all of our commission was there today and representing and got to check out the beautiful space. We hope the community can check it out as well if you have not yet. It is open for regular business now. And Benjamin, we'll move to you for announcements, please, from the clerk.
Yes, I've got some meetings to announce for this week, the week of February 3rd. The Planning Commission will meet on Tuesday, February 4th. That's at 6 p.m. in the Commission Chambers. The City and Garfield Township Joint Recreational Authority Board will meet on Wednesday, February 5th. That's at 7 p.m. in the Commission Chambers. The Coast Guard City Committee will meet this Thursday, February 6th at noon, and that'll be at the air station for the Coast Guard. And then the Parks and Recreation Commission is also meeting this Thursday, February 6th, but that's at 6:30 p.m. in the Commission Chambers. We're recruiting for a few different boards and committees. Those include Board of Tax Review, Local Officers Compensation Commission, Arts Commission, and Traverse City Light and Power Board. Anyone interested in serving on those boards that wants to know a little bit about what they entail and what the time commitment is and so forth, as well as how to step forward and volunteer to serve on those, we encourage to contact the city clerk's office. And then just a couple of community updates. The City Commission's ad hoc committee regarding the Brown Bridge Trust Fund, a potential ballot proposal, has begun meeting, and they are seeking input on improvements to consider, including on a list for eligible funding should the voters approve a ballot measure and should it be placed on the future ballot. A survey asking for that input on funding priorities or potential funding priorities. It can be found on the city's website under the news section. And then finally, a reminder that the city issues a weekly e-newsletter. It's called the Bay Brief, and you can sign up by going to traversecitymi.gov. And it is a weekly e-newsletter that is fairly brief and contains a lot of information. And I just want to remind everyone sitting up here to please speak into the microphone so folks listening in can hear you. And that's all that I've got.
Great, thank you. Can you keep it going then with the consent calendar, please?
Yeah. Oh.
I
Oh,
have,
yeah.
we're
I've been
removing,
reviewing it
I'm
before.
sorry, Madam Mayor. We're removing under old business number 1 to come back to commission on the 18th. In light of the city attorney working on an ethics ordinance, we can probably pare that scope back down to the original scope to reduce costs on that. So I just would like to bring that back on the 18th.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to the consent calendar. Sorry, I messed up the order there.
Yes, so no worries. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by any commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public can ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed from it to be discussed individually, and such requests are automatically respected. If an item isn't removed from the consent calendar, a single action adopting the consent calendar approves all the items on it. And item number 1, consideration of approving the minutes of the January 21st, 2025 meeting of the City Commission. Approval recommended. Item 2, consideration of adopting a resolution recommending approval of a social district permit for Common Good Hospitality Incorporated, which is located at 1115 East 8th Street, and consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration. Approval recommended. Item 3, consideration of authorizing a 3-year agreement with the state of Michigan for the city's participation in its central reservation system transient slip service at the Duncan L. Clinch Marina. Approval recommended. Item 4, consideration of authorizing a 2-year purchase order for digital forms for licensing and permitting. Approval recommended. Item 5, consideration of waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing a purchase order for a LifePak 15 monitor and CPR compression machine for the city's new ambulance. Approval recommended. And finally, item 6, consideration of authorizing a purchase order for the lease buyout of 2 John Deere 524L loaders, which are used by the Streets Division and the Parks and Recreation Division for leaf and brush pickup, snow removal, construction projects, and other tasks, which is a planned purchase. Approval recommended. And that's it.
Okay, any commissioner want to pull anything from the consent calendar? Jackie?
I have questions about item 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Okay, any others? Does the public have any item that they'd like to pull from the consent calendar, other than 2, 3, 5, or 6? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
I move that we accept the consent calendar as amended.
Thank you, Mitch.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll start with item number 2. You had this pulled, Jackie?
Yes, I did, thank you. This is a request from Common Good Bakery to receive licensing to participate during 2025, and I guess going forward, in the social district permit for the East End project. And I have been asking since December for some success metrics for that social district. You'll recall that we invested $60,000 in economic development funds, and I'd like to know what return on that we received. I was also rather concerned during December to hear from the city manager that what was presented to us as a pilot or a demonstration project actually was now in effect in perpetuity. And I need more documentation about that, just to provide some context. In the original proposal that was approved, this was a memo from our planning director, April 19th of 2024, described the project as being a, quote, pilot or demonstration project for the summer months of 2024, with the option to continue it in the future if desired. And it specified that the seasonal duration of the social district was from May 1st to October 31st. So I hesitate to move forward with a participation license for Common Good Bakery when, in good conscience, I can't believe that this is a pilot that is being extended without any information about its success or non-success during its first year. So I have concerns, and I'd appreciate either pulling this until we can get some answers to these issues.
Would you like me to
Please, go ahead,
respond?
Benjamin.
I can share some information
Great.
or respond to some of your questions and concerns. First, I will share that I know it's planned in April. I believe the April study session, an April study session for the planning director, who is meeting with business owners in the social district to come back to the city commission with information regarding last year's social district activities. With respect to the pilot status of the social district, I understand the memo that you read. I will share that it's in effect. The social district is there and can be revoked by the city commission if you desired, but it would actually take action of the commission to essentially rescind that social district. So it's not like it ended last year and has to then be approved by the commission to continue. I believe that I think I've covered your points. Is there anything remaining?
Well, I am concerned about that interpretation when materials presented to us clearly
Right.
stated an end date. So I guess I would want further conversation about that. As far as our study session, I really think it's premature to be, as I said, expanding the scope of the social district before we've had a review that determines whether it is going to continue forward or not. And if I can also just add a comment that I've been warned in advance that because the social district really was only in action for 2 months, that the decision-making data might be very limited. And so I would like a lot more detail about who the planning director is speaking to, what questions are being asked, what efforts are being made to gather information about economic indicators like employment and revenues and pedestrian traffic. And so I cannot in good faith approve this on behalf of Common Good Bakery without that study session and a lot more detail about the district itself.
Understood, and I know the city manager is making notes. I will say, and I know when you say expand the scope, you might mean with
I
respect to,
mean
of course, this.
Increasing the participating
Right,
licenses.
Yeah, they are within the existing boundaries.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I know the planning director and staff have reached out to the businesses to gather that type of information. They're hard to nail down sometimes because they are business owners, but they are working to collect the data that you've been asking for.
Just to point out, those business owners receive the benefit of $60,000 of city funds. I would think they would want to be very forthcoming with their availability and their information.
Do we have other comments or a motion? Go ahead, Tim.
In looking quickly at this, I didn't see a dollar amount as far as a cost to Common Good Bakery. Do you happen to know offhand, like in their application to be involved, is there a?
There is an application fee, and I usually pride myself on knowing what they are. It's not a lot.
It's not a lot? Okay,
no.
so like if we approve this and then sometime this summer we say, yeah, but actually we're gonna redo it this way, they're not out a significant amount of money.
No.
And where I'm going with that is, like, involved probably the same time we were having this discussion about the social district. I think I said in a public meeting, it was new to me, the idea of an open container and being allowed. And so what's our end goal with this social district? And are there other ways to get to that end goal? And what I'm thinking is, maybe it's not called a social district, and then we still invest the $60,000, there's still public space there that everybody can use, but it's not exclusive liquor licenses to a few businesses right there. It's to anybody. If you want to bring your six-pack from home, you can bring it from home and sit at the picnic table. Like, to me, let's have that discussion included in April as far as where are we trying to go with this and what are our options. So,
Got it.
thanks.
Yes.
Heather, you had put your hand
Yeah,
up.
no, I agree. I agree with that idea of talking about not necessarily a social district, but maybe some kind of placemaking. And I did actually send a letter of support for placemaking, a placemaking grant I was asked by the planning department via Leslie Bilby, who I know quite well. And everything that I've heard about the social district over the summer, those 2 months, was that it was very successful. Residents were happy, businesses owners were happy. Common Goods did not join in the social district last year, but they saw the success of the social district and wanted to be part of it this year. So I had no idea that the pilot was not a pilot and then it was just going to. So, but I'm willing to let this go and figure it out in April.
If I may, if we are looking at this, if it's a social district or not, and we are reaching out to owners, I would also like that, because what we're also then shifting is a district that has permitting and a space for which, the beverages served by them can be consumed within. If we open it up to something else, and as Commissioner Warner said, anybody can bring their own six-pack, you're now kind of putting those businesses in charge of helping to maintain the order, if you will, out on the street in front of their own business, which I know that is legal as it is right now, but I'd be curious about that with any concerns they might have for their liquor licensing, if someone was over-serving themselves or other matters like that they would then be out of control. It can be, we're having as part of the full discussion, but if we're getting input from owners, I would like that input from them as well, if they share any concerns.
And
Mark?
the common areas are considered like parks, right? So the same policies that apply
If we don't have, without, the social district has tighter rules.
for folks that
Yeah,
drink at barbecues.
right.
If they're over-serving themselves and they're being belligerent.
Right,
we
that is what I
already
want to know with the difference between the
policies in
social
effect for
district
that.
and the regular, yeah.
I look forward to talking about this in April. I think it's actually an appropriate time to get at it, and there's been some inquiries already about expanding the district, and it's been pointed out to me that down to Center Street along Garfield, there is no residences from 8th to there, and there's businesses that have expressed interest. And do they get directed to formally do that to the city clerk's office or to the planning?
It's the planning department's initiative with respect to establishing the social district, so they would go to the planning department.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more questions or a motion? Question?
Yeah, since Commissioner Anderson does bring up the notion of success metrics or looking for other ways of determining how well this worked, I was curious if she had, from perhaps a different social district in a different town in the state of Michigan operating under the same regulations, success metrics that she had looked at and found worked.
No, my concern is our very own social district.
Yes, but if we're saying what works, how are you defining what works?
That has been my question to the planning director since the inception of the social district, is what metrics are going to be used? What are the success metrics and definition?
Are you suggesting that every other community in the state has had no care for success and didn't measure it?
Did I say that?
Well, if they did, then it would seem reasonable that there would be success metrics that already exist.
I believe because this is an economic development funded venture, that we should be looking first at economic indicators like employment. Were more people employed during those 2 months in 2024 than there were in 2023? Were revenues at the participating businesses higher for that period in 2024 than in 2023? Those are places where I would begin. And I would also be interested in similar impacts on non-serving businesses who were impacted by the development and closing off of the parking to create the social district.
I appreciate the conversation we're starting here, that we'll be able to continue in April. I thank you both for that. I would ask, at this point, do we have any other questions or a motion?
I'll move that the resolution resolution recommending approval of the request from Common Good Hospitality, Inc., located at 1115 East 8th Street for a social district permit be approved, and that the city clerk be authorized to issue its updated registration to sell alcohol beverages for it to operate the permit at its premises.
Thank you,
Support.
Director Wilson. Thank you, Commissioner Treadwell. Any other comments at this time on this item? Seeing none, any public comment on this item at this time?
And I'll state the rules for public comment this evening. Please indicate your name and address if you're a city resident, non-city resident, or a city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And as always, we ask that all language be respectful to everyone. Thank you.
My name is Justin Reed, 630 Cottage Drive, Permit 1B, Traverse City, city resident. I'd be very interested in the metrics myself too, to compare during the tourism season and non-tourism season to see what the impacts are on the economy. Just to equal playing field, just to see how the year goes. Like I said, with tourism and non-tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any other public comment at this time? Bringing it back, I did have a question that I wanted to have clarified that I forgot to bring up earlier. What were the exact dates that the social district was open this year? Well, 2024, I apologize.
I think it was like Labor Day to October 31st.
Yeah,
think is
about
when
there,
it got-
certainly not past October 31st.
So not even 2 full months?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, that's just what I needed to know at this time before we start looking at impacts. Okay, bringing it back, any further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson,
no,
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes?
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes.
and Mayor Shamrow.
Yes, motion passes. Moving on to item 3, this is about the DNR contract for the transient slips. You had this pulled, Jackie?
I did, thank you. I wondered if we could have some assurances about the security of the online payment system and some information about how or if the state makes use of any data involved in that reservation transaction. I would like to put in a request, and my vote is not contingent on this, but there was reference to an October 31st, 2024 financial reconciliation. I'd really like to see that. And then just wondering, in terms of slip usage, what share of slip usage happens through this reservation system versus drop-ins?
I think
Okay.
Mr.
Frank.
Deturi is here.
Good evening. Frank Deturi, Director of Public Services. Could you repeat your question? Didn't quite understand the questions.
Oh, well, my first question had to do with security of the online payments. As I read the proposal, it appeared that all of this transaction is happening online, and I just wondered, is it through a highly secure website? And, you know, what assurances do we have that information entered into that system will be secure? And then also whether the state makes any other use of the reservation data.
To the first question, I can ask the state what they use. It's their reservation system, so I can surely ask that question and see what kind of guarantees we have for the security of the information. But I don't know the answer to the question.
All right. And then I presume that you've gotten your hands on the October 31st reconciliation, financial reconciliation. So if that could just be, has the state provided that to you?
I have not seen it. I have not read the October 31st reconciliation.
Okay, well, if I could just register a standing request to, when it's available, to
Okay,
have access
I can do
to
that.
it.
Yep.
And then in terms of the share of usage that happens through this online reservation system versus, now I understand that drop-ins are paid through the same system, yes?
That what? Who?
Drop-ins, you know, drop-in,
Folks who didn't reserve
Folks
the
who didn't
transient slip
reserve.
Sure.
through the system.
All reservations are handled through the central reservation system. That's correct.
but in terms of the split between those that are pre-reserved and those that are drop-ins,
I
you
don't
have
know.
a sense of that?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe we could have some follow-up after.
I think it is the vast majority are reserved through that system, right, in advance, Frank? I mean, we don't have the exact statistics, but wouldn't you? I don't
Sure.
know if that's enough, but
All the reservations for the transients come through the central reservation system.
right. But how
We
many of
basically handle-
those are made in advance?
Yeah, I can get that number, but I don't know exactly.
Can I ask a
Follow-up
question?
would be great.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Anderson, just in case, you know, you're wanting to know the difference between the drop-ins and the ahead of time. Is this that you have concerns about the policies that you'd like staff to follow up and examine? Or is this just something for information, since all the bookings go through the system that we'd be voting on here?
Well, all the payments go through the system. As I read the document, it appeared that there was a category of pre-reserved and a category of drop-ins. And in terms of how they're treated and how, you know, our fees assessed identically, it didn't seem to be. So because this is a financial issue, I'm trying to understand a
That's-
little bit more about the financial
That's why I was asking,
background.
because maybe we can have like a more report than just
Yeah, that
a
would
basic
be-
answer. That's why I wanted to
that would be
clarify, because
just fine.
that would fill in some gaps too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Heather.
Is this system that's used here, the Natural Resource Central Reservation, is it the same system that's used at parks?
Yes.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.
Speaking as a former Department of Natural Resources Parks employee that handled the reservations, yes.
Okay. There we go. Any other questions at this time? Do we have a motion at this time?
Sure.
Go ahead, Jackie.
I hope this is the right one. I move that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a 3-year agreement with Michigan Department of Natural Resources for participation and use of its central reservation system, such contract subject as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Heather. Any further comments on this item? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. On to item number 5, which is the non-compete for the Life Pack 15 monitor and CPR compression, and you had this one pulled, Jackie.
Yes, thank you. We're all getting sensitized to no bid contracts, and I'm sure there's a rationale here, and I just wanted to inquire about that.
I don't know if Chief wants to address that, or if, okay.
All right, good evening, Jim Teller, Fire Chief for the City of Traverse City. Great question, Commissioner, thank you. The vendor we are using, which is Stryker, is based out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. We've used them for many, many years. But more importantly, they, aside from our relationship, they are providing the equipment we need to move forward with our EMS project. The equipment we're purchasing, the LifePak 15, is exactly like the LifePak 15s that we have in service right now. And because they've been replaced by what's called the LifePak 35, which is the brand new model, came out, it was announced June 2024. Yeah, I'm not inclined to jump on that bus yet. I want to make sure that that equipment's, had a couple of years of street service and they got all the bugs out of it. But anyway, this equipment deal is also, if you remember a few months ago, there was a cost increase to the electronic cot system that we came back to the commission for. Yeah, that was from these people as well. They're helping us all the way through outfitting not only this ambulance but the next ambulance. And so when the next ambulance arrives in the next fall, we'll be coming back for another LifePak 15 and another Lucas at the same price. So it's kind of a package deal, but it's happening at different times along the way. And I make sure that I take everything, not only from my committee, but across the city manager's desk, get another set of eyes on it before we move forward.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have other questions? Do we have a motion? Okay,
Well,
Tim.
just since you're here and we're talking about it.
Yes, sir.
Since we'll be purchasing this again in the fall is what I think I'm hearing.
Yes, sir.
Have they guaranteed you a price for the one in the fall yet?
Yes, I believe they do. It's not here in the
Yeah,
documentation.
no, that's right, but
It's-
just that's part of the negotiation. Great.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
sir. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or a motion?
Move.
Oh, thank you, Jackie.
That the competitive bidding process be waived and that the city manager be authorized to issue a purchase order to Stryker of Portage, Michigan for the purchase of a LifePak 15 monitor and Lucas CPR compression machine in an amount not to exceed $66,820.02 with funds available in the Capital Equipment Fund 101336.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Warner. Any other questions or comments now that we have the motion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And lastly, the John Deere loaders buyout, and Jackie, you had this one pulled.
I'm on a roll. So this is a pretty straightforward decision to buy out of a lease rather than to continue to lease. And usually when you're looking at that kind of a decision, you want to know the time period for break even between those two alternatives. And I just wondered, you're expecting, I know, many years of trouble-free service on the buyout of our, currently leased John Deere loaders. But I wondered, do you have a sense of how many years we need to skate through before we're going to look back and wish that we had bought new?
We typically look at when we started this 5-year lease program. It depends on use. It depends on how much use and repairs they actually require. In this case, with the value of the items being, for us to be able to purchase them for less than what they would sell for by about $90,000, it's it seems like the most fiscally responsible path forward. These pieces of equipment have not been used to a point where we're seeing a lot of repairs needed. They're still in really good shape. They don't have a whole lot of hours on them. We think we can extend the life of them, use them for a few more years, and still sell them to recoup some dollars. So I don't know if exactly I answered your question or not, but this is the most fiscally responsible thing to do besides buying or leasing new loaders at this point.
The devil is in the details. And I think this is not the first time that I've asked for a break-even analysis on a lease versus buy decision. And maybe it would be possible to put that in as part of your standard practice. I mean, I know the Treasurer's Department was really helpful the last time this came up, and I think I would like us to be as quantitative as possible in making financial decisions. So
And
That can be
that's all.
done.
that's a great question, Jackie. And then I just had a question, and I'll ask Benjamin since he's here, since ID is not. Do we have any kind of policy that you know about that, that is a, hey, when we have this in our hands, here's how we weigh that? Or has that been a judgment call kind of thing over the years?
It's been a judgment
Okay.
call, there's not an actual policy, right?
Thank you. Just wanted to know that in case off the top they said, no, if it's not X percentage, we don't do it, or something.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or a motion?
Is it my fate to read all of the motions?
It's usually if it pulls and you're not against it, that's
Okay,
usually how it works.
Here we go. I move that the city manager be authorized to issue a purchase order to Deer Credit, Inc. of Johnston, Iowa, in the amount of $229,065.70 for garage vehicles 132.20 and 133.20 to John Deere 524L wheel loaders, using the State of Michigan Deal Cooperative Purchasing Contract with funds available in the Garage Fund 661000.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Any other questions or comments about this? Seeing none, any public comment about this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we have pulled the item from old business, so we're on to new business number 1, which is the addiction treatment services. Liz, did you want to kick that off for us?
Thank you, Mayor Shamro. This request for $100,000 for 2 beds at ATS was discussed at our budget cycle in May. It was brought forward through the budget workshop that we had. And we do have Paula Lipinski with ATS here tonight to explain how this fits into the overall strategy of helping individuals in crisis, many of whom are homeless or have other issues. And this would allow our quick response team to identify individuals who might not otherwise qualify for these beds and to get them in there so they don't fall through the cracks of that continuum of care. And I am not the best one to speak on the continuum of care, but we do have the right people here in the room to help assist with that. So if I could turn it over for questions. I know Commissioner Warner had a number of questions that we worked hard to answer today, and I did submit those to the City Commission via email.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, since I did ask a bunch of questions today, and I appreciate the effort to get responses to all of them. And to me, yeah, ATS is clearly a worthy cause, but I'm still left wondering, like, is this the best use of the $100,000 and to what end? And we have advocates here to say yes, but we don't have the advocates for other ways we could spend the $100,000. So I'm not ready to support this tonight. I could be in the future if we had more options of what it is we're trying to achieve, like long-term with housing and homelessness and permanent supportive housing. So again, I think ATS is certainly a worthy cause, but based on the information provided so far, it's very much in support of it, but nothing like what else could we do with this $100,000. So that's just me. Thank you.
I guess, go ahead, Heather.
Well, I have a bunch of questions. Somebody can answer questions? So City Manager Vogel just said some individuals wouldn't qualify for this treatment, so these beds would,
No, I think what first of all, my name's Paula Lipinski. I'm the CEO of Addiction Treatment Services. Thank you for having me this evening. I think what was noted was these transitional beds are fulfilling a gap for people that wouldn't meet the requirements for treatment.
and why wouldn't they meet the requirements?
Because they may not meet the criteria. There's medical necessity that comes along with substance use disorder treatment. One of those would be if you're withdrawing. We have different, without going into a full explanation of all the services ATS provides, we have a full continuum of care of substance use treatment with ATS. That includes withdrawal management, that includes men's residential, women's residential, outpatient services, medically assisted treatment, as well as recovery homes. I employ 103 employees, okay? Last year, we serviced 1,300 individuals. 1,100 of those were Medicaid recipients, just to kind of give you a perspective. So with that, for the coverage of those services, you rely on medical necessity. There's also an ASAM continuum of care that identifies what level of care you meet requirements for when you're struggling with substance use disorder. So when we talk about withdrawal management, there's medical necessity and criteria that comes with that. There's criteria that comes with men's and women's residential. There's criteria that comes with outpatient services. So these beds are meant for people who may not be fitting into that perfect box. Unfortunately, insurance providers try to make it very clear, but not everybody fits into the box. These individuals are outside that. They might be between, I think that one of the examples provided is someone leaving jail, and they might have a gap in care. So they might be discharging from jail, and then in 2 or 3 days, maybe a week, they're entering into another level of care. They wouldn't necessarily meet the criteria of withdrawal management because they've been incarcerated and they haven't been using, and they're already scheduled for another level of care in a town over or something like that. But that period of time between jail and entering into care is significantly high risk for not only relapse, but for overdose. And I think this has been something that the quick response team has identified, along with the numerous partners of the quick response team, to clarify that this is something that we could kind of fill that gap. We have, as an agency, I will say that we have attempted to allow the flexibility for even people who are coming into our withdrawal management who might meet the criteria of withdrawal management, which is generally physical withdrawal symptoms, and they may be in our care and then they're heading to another facility for residential, depending on their personal preference, availabilities, things like that. I can say that in good faith, my agency has allowed those people to stay without receiving any type of funding. And we've done it because it's the right thing to do, but I also have a bottom line to pay for. I'm a social worker at heart. I'm a person in recovery, and if it was up to me, we would do these services for free. My staff would disagree. I have nurses, I have a physician's assistant, I have social workers, I have peer coaches that need to be paid, and we are a true nonprofit. We run on a very thin margin. So this request for funding was a creative way to fulfill a gap, but also ensure that ATS is around for the next 50 years.
Thank you, that was wonderful. A great explanation. So we're talking about beds here, but these are $50,000 beds. So can you explain what that means? You know, what is a $50,000 bed?
So a $50,000 bed is, and let me also mention that I don't think a period of time has really been clarified as how long that $50,000 exists. I think that we, obviously it's budgeted for this budget year. So those beds include 24-hour supervision. They include the bed, the food, the heat, I mean, all of your needs, as well as security, as well as services to ensure that you can get to the next level of care. So the issue with substance use disorder, it's not just housing people. I can tell you personally, you could get out of jail and you could be all ready to go to treatment and all ready and just raring to go. This is the right thing to do. And for whatever reason, the disease is so cunning, baffling, and powerful that if the right people aren't there to help you, you could change your mind in a snap. And so we employ staff who are properly trained to not only discuss those options, but to provide support to continue to get you to the next level. And so those $50,000 beds allow for all of that staffing on top of just all the just general food, comfort, bed, security, all of those things.
So that's operational over a year?
Thank you, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many beds do you have currently, and how many of them are mobile? Because you talked, there was
So my
mention of a mobile bed, too.
I
Or
guess not a-
mobile unit? There was mobile something in here.
So I can tell you, I'm not quite sure what the mobile piece was, but my agency as a whole, we have about 100 beds. Now that includes, we have 6 recovery homes, which is a different lower level of care than what we're discussing today. So we have 6 recovery homes. We have 27 men's residential beds. DeKoski Hall, if you've been around, I always say if you've been around for a while, the big old DeKoski Hall, that is 27 men's beds. We have 10 women's beds at Phoenix Hall, which also allows women to bring their children. We have 16 beds at our withdrawal management facility. And for quite a while, we did run at our census for withdrawal management was 15 beds, but we did add the additional 16th bed after we were approved per fire. I'm saying that because our fire chief is here. They did allow us to add that because it does meet fire code. And it was in preparation for not only if we moved in this direction, but again, we have already been working with Traverse City Police Department as well as the quick response team to try to add for as much flexibility as possible.
That's a lot of beds. What's the percentage that you have those beds filled over the year?
So our withdrawal management, which is where this bed will be primarily located, that facility runs at 60% census. The rest of our facilities, our women's residential runs about 80% census throughout the year, and our men's residential runs about 70% census. So at no point in time are we running consistently full. And so there's always flexibility. And because we have multiple locations, it will allow for that flexibility in addition to adding that additional bed.
So the bed could move where it's needed?
Yes.
Let's see, do I have any other one? When patients are released, no, this is not mandatory. There's nothing mandatory here. This is...
Correct. This is all voluntary. So this is, and we do have, we did create some criteria as well as the memo of understanding to kind of indicate what they would have to agree to, because it sounds really great to kind of enter into a facility where, you know, you have to smoke outside or you get frozen dinners and all these things, but then once you're there, we don't allow people in our withdrawal well, really either of our any of our facilities to carry their prescriptions, their medications with them. So they would, you know, there's a lot of things that come with staying there that we want to explain up front, and that would be the responsibility of the quick response team as well as addiction treatment services.
So when patients are released, are they always released to some other kind of care or to known housing? Do you follow how?
For these transitional beds, or are you talking about for people who are under our care?
Under your care.
Under our care, there can be a gap in services. We don't require, first of all, there is no law, nor is it in the best interest to force someone. Like, you cannot petition somebody into substance use disorder treatment. So there have been periods of time where someone may want to leave withdrawal management, and we would strongly recommend that they go into the next level of care, but they choose not to. Our practice is we continue to service people and allow them back in as much as it takes, because you just don't know. It could be time number 3, it could be time 103, but you keep trying. In regards to, and you also see that in regards to residential care as well. We don't mandate or require anyone into the next level of care, but we utilize the same criteria that we follow as far as medical necessity to determine those recommendations. We have master's level clinicians that make these determinations and work with the person to make the decision for the best of their ability.
I just have one more question. Are you able to say what substance is the most abused?
I can tell you that 65% of the patients that or clients that we service are alcohol use disorder. Followed by that is opioid use disorder, and then stimulant. Actually, opioid use disorder and stimulants are kind of neck and neck right now. But there's a misnomer that opioids are, the fatality behind opioids is much more significant, especially with the addition of fentanyl. But alcohol use disorder has for years been skyrocketed the highest.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Stanley.
This might be for either Ms. Lipinski or Chief to kind of address what Commissioner Werner brought up about how else this $100,000 could be used. So these beds are for temporary placement for Traverse City Police Department Quick Response Team participants and other law enforcement referrals. So I'm looking at the list of Quick Response Team members, the agencies involved. So it's ATS, there's Goodwill Northern Michigan, which is one of the big players in housing and homelessness. There's Northern Lakes Community Mental Health and Jail Diversion. There's also the Northwest Michigan Supportive Housing entity and Safe Harbor, as well as Traverse Health Clinic. And then, of course, there's the work happening to try to collaborate with the Sheriff's Department. So if we're talking about how else could this $100,000 be used, was this MOU and this funding discussed at the Quick Response Team? Are the other Quick Response Team organizational members aware of this MOU and these funds? Was there discussion at the Quick Response Team? I know that those meetings are confidential, but can you speak to whether and in what way a conversation if it did occur around this MOU, whether there was discussion with the other participants and what their thoughts were about this as a use of these resources?
I can also allow Chief to speak. He's surprised by that statement immensely. But what I will say is that, yes, this was discussed as a team. This was something that, again, the benefits of the Quick Response Team is that it has allowed for so many of these agencies to come together in kind of, not even forced, but just a general way to individually address some of these gaps in services and gaps in care in our community. And I can tell you that I've been around the Northern Michigan region providing human services for a number of years. And I mean, my gosh, well over 20. And this is the most impactful, effective way of collaboration I've ever seen. And this is one of those ways that I think it's very specific to addiction treatment services or substance use disorder. But what I can tell you is that it's because we acknowledge and we realize that we share a circle and a population of people. There's also conversations going on about how ATS intersects with permanent supportive housing, including East Bay Flats, which the community block grant funding was provided to that. We are providing services to permanent supportive housing because substance use disorder is a significant problem and a need within that component. I am not coming to the table asking for funds to partner with the housing agencies for permanent supportive housing because I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Were there any objections from the other partner organizations that this amount of funding would go toward ATS and these transitional beds as opposed to going to some other form of transitional or supportive housing?
Correct. No, there has not been.
But there was discussion of this at those meetings?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Do we have any other questions at this time or a motion? Go ahead, Jackie.
I guess this is more for the chief. I hope you know what a fan I am of QRT and the results that you have accomplished. And given the opportunity, I have voted positively in favor of requests for expansion of QRT. Are you currently serving clients through QRT and the numbers, I don't know, 100 to 130, somewhere in there? Is that about the client population?
I believe, again, Matt Richmond, Chief of Police. The last number I knew, and Brad may know this more, is active membership or active cases right now is just over 100.
About 100.
Since the beginning, we've had 287 referrals to the QRT, so.
And do you have any sense of what share of those might be eligible and appropriate for use of these transitional beds?
I don't have a specific number, and I think that will vary depending on the circumstances. I know this is an identifiable gap in service that's been discussed at QRT, not only to, assist law enforcement, but the 55 partners that we have. They may have a client that is in need of a place to stay before they get out of jail, after they get out of jail, and go into treatment, instead of, having that potential of relapsing and not entering treatment or not entering permanent housing. So this is a way to fill that gap that we've identified through our partnership in the QRT. I can tell you, and I want to give, a kudos to Paula Lipinski and ATS, that since the beginning, they've been one of our primary partners since the beginning of QRT, and they've prioritized 2 of their detox or withdrawal management beds to QRT and the Traverse City Police Department for their referrals. As she indicated, those individuals usually have to have some kind of medical or have used within 7 days and is eligible for insurance. In 2024, the QRT referred 175 individuals, or I should say, utilized those beds 175 times. So there is a great service that ATS is giving us here right now, and this is just an identifiable gap that we've identified and partnered with ATS again.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, this would allow you to extend that service benefit beyond
Correct.
people who are insured.
Yeah, one example would be, if you're in jail for a month, you're not actively withdrawing, you don't fit that criteria for one of those withdrawal management beds, so that this transitional bed would be a place for you to go in a safe, substance-free, trauma-informed place until you can get to treatment maybe 2 days later.
That helps to clarify. Thank you.
And, just so we're clear, the city manager indicated that we spoke about this during budget in May. Since that time, I've been asked, and I am currently a board member at ATS, so I just want to put that out to you. Law enforcement representation on the ATS board is not new. It's not new to Traverse City Police Department. There's been other officers that have sat on this board. ATS looks to have a professionally diverse board with law enforcement representation on it.
Do we have other questions or a motion?
I'll make the motion that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute a memorandum of understanding with Addiction Treatment Services for 2 transitional beds in an amount not to exceed $100,000. Such memorandum subject as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney, with the funds available in the police department fund.
Support.
Thank you from Commissioner Stanley and Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. I just wanted to add, because this wasn't a question, my years up here, and I think when people are used to kind of how government works, which I know is a broad topic and phrase, that we often hear more about lobbying. And I really want to thank Chief here and Ms. Lipinski and the whole team on QRT that, based, as Commissioner Stanley got to in her questions, and as Commissioner Anderson did as well, of this is a need that was identified by the professionals working in this every day and brought forward collaboratively, and not a competition, not who had whose ear. And I'm really appreciating how this QRT, we're always talking about how impressed we are about the QRT, and I just think this is just another example of, we've in recent months helped Safe Harbor with certain aspects. We've helped other, facilities. We've done supportive housing grant money, basically. And now this is another example of what's come out of that process. So I want to thank you all for working so collaboratively and bringing forward to us the needs as they arise, so that we can help to tackle these problems and all the different aspects that are presented to us in the community. So thank you for that. Anyone else with comments or questions? Seeing none, I will open up for any public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call?
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
No.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Proudly, yes.
and Mayor Shamrow.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. We will move on then to item number 2, which is the road salt purchase. And I will put this over to Liz, and I know Frank's here too.
Thank you, Mayor Shamrow. You have your executive summary in front of you. Just by way of background, Mr. Deturi reached out to me over the last weekend, saying that we felt that we only had a few weeks left worth of road salt, and that is something that is not something that a city wants to run out of during the middle of winter. I asked Frank and his team to investigate alternatives, and before you is Mr. Deturi's memo, which actually I was really impressed that they were able to do this in such a quick time. They were able to find an additional amount of materials from Detroit Salt Company, only $1.63 per ton more than our actual contract, and that contract isn't able to get us what we need. We estimate 500 tons to get us through the rest of the season, and so I am recommending that the City Commission approve this. The order will take 5 to 7 business days to arrive after the purchase order is approved, which would need to be expedited tomorrow. Mr. Deturi estimated 500 tons in the barn as of June 30th, but we had 2 snow events yesterday and today, so I'm guessing that that has been depleted further, and I would direct any questions to Mr. Deturi at this time.
Tim?
Actually, my question's for the city manager, wondering, since the meeting last spring when we approved a lesser amount of salt with what I thought was a clear direction to you and your staff to be smarter about the use of salt, wondering since that time what discussions, communications you've had with staff about the smarter use of salt, because there's nothing in the memos today to indicate that there were any changes.
Yeah, so I went back and reviewed the motion from that meeting, and the motion was just to approve the purchase of 300 tons early and 300 tons late. And I believe that I have not had any specific meetings entitled The Smarter Use of Road Salt. I trust our team that they are using the minimum that they feel is the appropriate amount of salt to be using. They are also investigating a spray technology, a liquid technology. The trucks arrived this winter that were ordered in order to provide for that. They will not be ready to test that product this winter. So they are self-directed in finding other unique opportunities to maintain our roads. But no, we did not have specific meetings.
Do you want to address that since you're up there, Frank? Or
I think Liz captured it well. The staff, through its experience over the last several years, has gotten to a point where we feel that a 200-pound per lane mile application, when we're placing it continuously, results in the best possible level of service. And then as soon as I say that, I catch myself, because one side of the city might be different than the next side of the city. One evening might be it might be different. Tonight's different than a different night, depending on temperature, moisture content. The conditions are changing wildly. What our staff does, based on their experience as they're moving through the city, is place salt when they think they need it, in the places they think they need it. It's not, it is based on experience. The salt that we place, and it shows up in the memo regarding the MDOT salt or the state trunk lines. Nearly 18% of our salt goes on 6% of our roads. The local roads, so the majors and locals, and the local roads are typically salted just at the intersections to provide safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, people crossing intersections. The alleys are typically not salted at all, only in places where if we have an issues with them. Also, sidewalks, our sidewalk snowplow routes typically salt only in places where there are specific trouble places, on bridges, often in parking lots of parks where there's a lot of traffic, people walking back and forth. So we're cognizant of the use of salt. I think we found a good strategy for treating what we think is necessary. What we think is necessary is dependent on each event. Even when we try to compare this year to year, this year last year we had 51 events where we actually placed salt on our road. This year already we're past 53 events, and those events can't be rationalized to snow totals. Sometimes it's freeze and thaw, sometimes it's dew points, could be icy roads, wet icy roads, but we're already past what we saw last year. Last year, we had the benefit of having a salt pond that had 1,400 ton before we ordered salt. This was the previous salt order. We asked for 1,200, we got 600. We made it through last year, 51 events, using approximately 2,000 ton. That's what we wound up at the end with at the end of the year, with essentially an empty salt barn, and that's okay. Right, if we could make that gas. This year, we wound up with nothing in reserve in the salt barn, a limited purchases, and now we're at a point where, as we continually treat the roads to the best of our ability, we've had weather that has made us run out of salt. I'm sorry, I don't do that. You do that.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yeah, this actually, it's the same topic, but it's going to build on the lack of follow-through and some broken promises. I went back and listened to the meeting from April last year, where you said that you were going to explore whether you could go with a full liquid mixture. I'm quoting because I transcribed this. And you were a full liquid mixture, no more rock salt. It needs 2 applications before the storm, and I presume after, you never really said, and that you would experiment on 1 route. So I asked the city manager, how did that go? I'm realizing fully that we had a pretty light winter. And the answer I got was that you'd only just received the trucks that spray the application, and they're not outfitted with the equipment, that they just arrived in the barn, and that we could, this is the city manager's words, we can budget for the liquid application pilot for the next winter season. But that's not at all what was said last year. It was said that you could do it. You were going to do it and make the experiment last year, and so what happened? I don't know.
Can I address that question? I believe what I said was we are exploring new technologies that will allow us to move forward with better salt applications. We're doing exactly that. We ordered the trucks that we actually have in our possession with the ability to upgrade them to allow us to put equipment in it that we can put a full liquid application. We are exploring, and we are moving towards that. Takes a while for the trucks to come in. I do not believe I said, and I don't want to get in the back and forth here, but I don't believe I said
this year we're planning to explore.
We are, and this year I'm still exploring.
And there was no mention that this was going to be a budget item and we had to make a pilot for it.
But we're hearing, though, that the truck was planned for this year. It took this long to come in.
We've had 1 month of this year.
So do we have other questions or a motion?
I know that a motion will be coming forward, but to me, the season started with a known quantity of salt. and we got all the way to last weekend before, oh, look, we're running low on salt. Like, again, there was a discussion about smarter use of salt last year. So to me, it seems like city manager with her staff decided to ignore that. Let's just move forward like we do every year. And when we run out of salt, we'll back the city commission into a corner and tell them they got to buy some more. And there was no follow through on how to use less salt, how to be smarter about it, how to actually use science. Like as a nation right now, we have troubles with science. We have people that don't believe in vaccines. We have people that don't believe in climate change. And I'm not trying to compare this to that, but on our little tiny small scale here in Traverse City, we can believe in science. We don't have to just ignore science and say, well, this is how my grandpappy did it, so I'm going to keep doing it the same damn way. We can use science. This is terrible.
Commissioner Stanley?
I guess my question is, if we did not have the equipment to pilot the alternate technologies, and I have lived in communities where they use the alternate technology, it's wonderful, but if we didn't have a truck that would allow us to do that, how exactly were we supposed to implement this? We have the current technology in the current trucks. I find it really unsettling to be listening to my fellow commissioner implicate the city staff in colluding to create a crisis when we are the ones who refused to purchase the quantity of salt that was requested last year. We halved the order. We created the urgency that we are now experiencing. So this, if anything, this comes back to us. Frank's team said that they would explore alternate technologies. That exploration of an implementation requires having the trucks, which have just been delivered. If we're not wanting the city to use salt, let's have a policy that we do not use road salt, that we only sand. But year after year, having this discussion about quantities and whether they are using too much without quantifying, and ending up in a situation where we're running out and having the assertion be made that that was intentional, this is a waste of staff time to have this discussion year upon year. This is a waste of taxpayer dollars. We are very fortunate that that the city manager was able to find an alternative that was priced similarly, but otherwise, the trucks that we just received are not going to be going into service this year with any alternate technology. And again, the city commission is the one who made the decision to purchase the quantity of salt that we had on hand. This is on us. So therefore, I'm going to make the motion that the city manager be authorized to issue a purchase order to the Detroit Salt Company for 500 tons of salt in the not-to-exceed amount of $38,815 with funds available in various street budgets.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Stanley and Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Mitch, you had your hand up?
Commissioner Warner can speak first.
No, we go in order of who had spoken and then spoken, so.
Okay. Well, following on Commissioner Warner's last remarks about the need to use science, I could understand something of that in that, yes, the American Association of Public Works, no, the American Public Works Association does have an Excellence in Snow and Ice Control Award, and we have not won that. So by that metric, we are not doing as well as we could. But if you look into who has won it, there's only one community in the entire state of Michigan, Novi, in 2013. So it's quite possible that just nobody's nominating us. I'd say, yes, we can try to do better, but our viewpoint has been perhaps a little more parochial than it needs to be, in that, yes, are we just trying to use less salt for our own sake, or are we actually trying to promote the use of less salt in general, in which case we're already doing more than most other communities in northern Michigan. Our use of beet heat, maybe that's not the perfect solution. I wouldn't be surprised if science could create a better salt-reducing de-icing chemical, but that has had significant impacts on reducing the amount of salt that we use per lane mile, and yet we're the only community, according to BT's own brochure, north of I-94 that uses it in the entire state. So yes, we could do better, but the whole industry needs to do better. And perhaps we should try to set some leadership about what we are doing here and encourage other communities to take our example.
Commissioner Warner?
Yeah, as far as last spring and reducing the order for salt, part of that was because of, at least in my mind, all the years of non-response from city manager in trying to take a more purposeful and smarter look at our small salt usage to force the issue. There will be less salt, and so the thinking was, again, in my mind, that city manager working with staff would have to think about how to use less of it in a smarter way. And there was many months to figure something out. And what we've heard was there were no discussions about how to use less. It was just, we'll just use what we have. And so even today in a snow event, we did not have an ice event, it was a snow event. And I live in Central Neighborhood, lots of snow on the streets, and salt was being placed toward the intersections. And that's exactly how years ago I explained at the Sochi Olympics, that's when I started on this, that you put salt on snow when you want to create ice. And so that's what we're doing. We're creating hazardous conditions. We put salt onto snow that continues to accumulate. It creates wet spots. It's science, it's not magic. So the salt is still there. The water has to go somewhere. It gets diluted by ever more snow that's around it. It's essentially a small pond. The temperature drops tonight. Eventually it's ice. It's not magic, it's science. And so it was a good example today of how we're still being wasteful, even after this memo. When we as a city know that we're running low on salt, we're still wasting salt.
Mary Pro Tem Wilson and then Commissioner Shaw.
I've heard this argument several times about the ice on snow and the melting of the snow. So if they wait until it's colder, until later, driving over that snow is still going to cause it to melt, still cause it to pool. It's still going to become ice eventually. There should be snow and sand. There should be some option. I just don't see it. I feel like staff is like trying their best to like accommodate your insatiable need for it to be better and better and better, and it's not going to make the people of the city safer. I've slid through stop signs going within a reasonable speed, 5 under in a 25, and you get to a stop sign and it's just going through, and it makes me like think about new drivers and school buses and emergency vehicles. Like, I get it. I'm with you on all the environmental issues, and I want to see us be that, but beating up staff isn't going to be the solution yet. We have to like be real about the needs of our streets.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, but we also have to be real about the cost, the fiscal cost of using too much salt. And I will bring back what Commissioner Werner said last year. You have the environmental problems, you have the safety problems, but the fiscal problems is that for every dollar that the city spends on salt, it will have to spend $3 on infrastructure repairs, because salt melts cement, it corrodes metals, it's incredibly destructive.
That's the value of the lives, when there's accidents, when you're sliding through an intersection. Like, I'd rather repair the streets than to look at.
But I think that the point is that we can be smarter about this, and we're not being smarter about this.
I think we're penny pinching, and it's forcing us into corners. That's not the way. Like, if we're going to keep working towards I would love for Traverse City to be the innovative hub of some of these new solutions, but we're not there yet. And so we need to be smarter about our purchases well in advance, and we wouldn't even be here having this conversation right now.
But that's exactly what Commissioner Werner was bringing up. Why didn't these discussions happen over the last year? Why are we here right now with this, oh my gosh, we've got to buy this thing right now because we don't have any?
Because they weren't allowed. So before, the first time my first year on here, and I heard this argument, one of the arguments was like, we haven't even had winter, which is true, you know, actually kind of scary. And then we don't know what the weather's going to do, and here we are now. We could have been well prepared. We could have had a good stockpile of it. It doesn't go bad. And if we find that we're not using it for several years, then that's fine. I don't agree with the argument that, like, if we have more, we're going to use more. I don't think that's staff's intentions or you know, misuse of the product.
Commissioner.
Is there, oh, sorry.
Oh, you have a question?
before
Go
I
ahead.
was done, is there a metric that you currently have that, like, compares to, like, the recommended use versus what we actually use? Are we currently already, like, rationing this as much as we can?
We contact other municipalities around the Great Lakes, not just locally, but around the Great Lakes. And in the memo, it states that it depending on the type of road and the situation, folks are using anywhere from 150 to 450, almost 500 pounds of salt per lane mile. There are folks on the west side of the Great Lakes that use the pure liquid application. That seems to work best. The reason we're headed towards a pilot is because that seems to work best for system snow. I'm kind of going around to get to your answer, but system snow is a little bit more predictable. Liquid applications are typically done before the snow comes to treat the road surface, and then after the snow has arrived. With lake effect snows and more unpredictable weather situations here, you don't see a whole lot of folks in Michigan using full liquid application because you risk the ability to be putting a product on the ground and seeing no change, nothing in the weather that actually warranted it. So we're almost stuck with reacting to what's there. And when we do react to what's there, it's not like every truck that you see going through the town is spinning salt and putting beet heat down. Watch those plows go by. They plow first, then they come back through. After the roads are plowed, when they come back through, then they'll salt. Or else you'd just be putting salt on snow and plowing it away. That's not the object. The object is to plow when you get down to the surface. So move through. You bet. Trucks are coming around all night long, plowing, trying to remove the snow from the road surface. Then when they come back through, then they're applying the rock salt with beet heat. So we've talked about beet heat in the past. That is one of the things we have explored in the past that led us to a 40% reduction per lane mile in the amount of salt we use. Is beet heat salt? Yes. Is it also included in that 40% reduction in salt? Yes. So we have been looking for alternate ways. We're constantly looking to others in the industry. We go to snow conferences. I believe that Traverse City's efforts are as good or better than any municipality you can find in the state of Michigan.
Commissioner Anderson, you had your hand up.
I did. I just wanted to step back a moment and point out that this is the second time on a rather short agenda that we've run into issues with the City Commission understanding of something that was approved and discussed, and the staff interpretation of that being at odds. And I am going to vote against this in hopes that we can take away a better alignment between City Commission direction and staff action.
I'm going to push back a little on that, if I may, because I think we've just had Frank say that in response to the conversation we had, he ordered a truck that will be doing this It did not come in time, which we all know from every motion we've all put forward in the last year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years even, but much worse in the last 5, that these trucks and everything we're trying to get right now take months and months to get. So we had this conversation in the spring, as we discussed. There were orders put, there was research done. This is more than a Google search in over 15 minutes and making a decision. I think we all know that. I'm not saying we don't. And they went ahead and made a purchase. And that was it was not all coming together in time for this year to do this as the pilot. I guess I'm kind of having trouble with everybody saying, nothing's been done, when that action has been taken, when that is in motion. As was made comments before, we've done beat heat in the past in response to these conversations. We've constantly been trying to move this. And yeah, it's not at perfection, and it will never be at perfection, because there will always be something new and there'll be always a newer innovation. But we have before us right now that we are running out of salt. We also had in that conversation, and I since someone has recently watched it, I think this can be verified, that we've not had winters. We don't do winters. It's climate change, winters aren't here. And we have had a winter this winter, and that is climate change. Climate change isn't global warming like we always talked about in the past, and I know everybody up here knows that. We've had that, that's how it's presented the last couple of years, but we have a winter this year. We have the rest of February, we have March, we always have an April snowstorm, and the choice right now is, are we going to get salt to keep our roads and our people safer, or are we going to come back in a couple of weeks when they're really, really out and have this conversation again and have the 5 to 7 day gap? And we have staff here presenting to us. You know, Commissioner Warner said we have right now where there's anti-science in government. Well, we also have right now a government where people who are not experts or not worked in government are in charge of determining efficiencies and inefficiencies and costs. And that's a problem too. We have staff who's done their research and come to us and said, hey, here's where we're at this year. They didn't come back 2 weeks after we gave them a limited salt order and say, I really don't think this is going to work. They've made do as best as they can. And now they're here saying that that isn't good enough for getting us through this winter with the way it's been going. Go ahead.
I just want to draw attention, I know this is in the memo, but the second 300 tons arrived on January 16th. And Frank brought it to my attention in less than 10 days that he didn't feel comfortable that that would get us through the end of the season. So the second order was delivered, and staff made the determination in a relatively quick amount of time to avoid a point where we literally were out.
Please remember that we did order, the request was for 600 and 600. What we approved was 300 and 300.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Wilson and then Commissioner Warner.
Well, first, I'm prepared to make this motion, and I would say that a no vote under protest is pretty shameful and not considering the safety of our citizens. But the other thing that I have a question before making it is that, should this fail, is there any other option within your spending authority that we could pursue to make sure that our roads are safe?
There is a motion
We do
on
have a
the
motion.
table.
Okay, we do have the
Oh, it
motion,
is?
so you don't need to make
My
that, but that's a
bad.
question to answer, please.
Well, then, point of order,
Yeah.
we're going in circles.
Yes, we could place an order within my spending authority for a lesser amount that might not get us through, and then we would, if that wasn't enough, we'd have to come back.
Could you place repeated orders within your spending authority?
I'm not sure. We have Lauren on the call. I don't think that that's, and frankly, this is a really, we're talking about direction, and a no vote means some of you don't want this, but then it's not an acceptable outcome to run out of salt before the end of the season. It's health, safety, welfare, it's government 101. So I would be in a very difficult position as your city manager to then place an order within my spending authority, which some of you may disagree with, and then maybe have to come back here again and make the same request, knowing that the outcome may very likely be the same. So that's it's just a difficult position for me and for the team.
Commissioner Warner, and then Commissioner Treadwell, and then Commissioner Shaw.
Yeah, so Mayor used the words made do, like staff made do with what we allowed them to have. But to me, the issue is the staff followed the status quo. They made no adjustments, no acknowledgement that there was less salt and maybe there would be a real winter. And that was part of the intention, because there hadn't been any changes over the years in how they apply salt. So maybe if they had less salt, they would have to think about how they were using the salt, and they chose not to. And then here we are tonight, and we're hearing fear-mongering about health and safety of citizens and all. So in Central Neighborhood, the vast majority, that's where I live, the vast majority of citizens that live there, they exit an alley to one of the streets. Not everybody, but the vast majority. And there's not salt put down at the intersection of the alley and a street. And yet, it's not mayhem. There's not cats and dogs living together and, accidents every morning as people go off to work and school at the end of their alleys. So somehow people know how to drive properly given the conditions. And yet we're being led to believe that if we treated the intersection of Maple and 9th the same way we treat the intersection of the alley behind 9th and Maple, that civilization would collapse and people would be dying every morning in horrible accidents. Yes, I'm exaggerating, but it's all the same. It's right there. And so there's really small changes that could have been made at the start of the season. And city manager, city staff chose not to even have a discussion about what changes could be made. And now here we are with, and it's not an all or nothing. Like if the vote fails, then we can try another motion that has some accommodation and some thoughtfulness for addressing a smarter use of salt. Pretty straightforward.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes, I was just, in response to Mark Wilson's comment, clarifying that if a motion fails, a second motion can be made
Yes.
for a different amount.
Yes. Commissioner Shaw?
This is only my second year, well, my second time sitting here listening to this discussion. I can only imagine, well, maybe Mayor Schramro's been, I don't know if you've been here 10 years, but this has probably been going on for 10 years. Oh my gosh. So you need my vote to pass this. You need 5 votes. My vote's what you need. Okay, I'll give it to you with the understanding that we don't have this conversation next year, that there is follow-through and promises are kept by the city manager to have this discussion about how we can be smarter. And, if you can't change the 200 pounds per lane mile, then we want to know why. But there's got to be something you can do. There's got to be a discussion, and we want to hear the results of that discussion at the beginning of the year, not in the middle of the year when you've run out of salt and everything's in a panic. We are way too many times finding ourselves in a corner, in a panic. You have to give us this thing, or the grant's going to run out, or the product's going to run out. And it's, after 1 year, I've heard it too many times already. So I will give you that vote with that understanding that I don't want to be back here again in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. So please, follow through. City manager.
I would like that to be put into the motion because directing city staff is really not the purview of this body. But if that's something that you need, then it needs to be, that expectation needs to be put in the motion and not something that someone remembers or doesn't remember from one commissioner. So I would just respectfully ask that motion be amended to include that request.
Hold on.
And that's why I had my hand up.
Go ahead,
was
Commissioner.
that
Or Mayor Pro Tem.
It could be reflected in the minutes, but I think maybe just make an amendment to the motion and say exactly what you want so that it's there.
So could we say then, funds available in the various street budgets, and with, what would you like to hear? Reporting on, I'm looking at you, Commissioner Shaw, because you've made the suggestion. I just want to make sure we get it right. I'm not trying to put you, we'll have Benjamin help us wordsmith
The future
this.
use of salt is, let's see, with a report on the future use of salt is discussed between the city manager and the staff and presented to the city commission.
In
Just Jackie's got an idea.
No,
Oh.
just a suggestion that it be the future reduced use of
the
salt.
future reduced use of salt, and it be presented to the city commission.
May, should we hope the snow's done by then?
Well, I would say like September.
Okay.
Give them time.
Okay, September. And would we like to include something in there about updates on the status of the, sorry, I've already forgotten what it was called, that we bought the truck for? That alternative,
The
application.
yeah, the
full liquid
application.
mixture.
Yes, thank you, full liquid mixture. Would you like that included as well?
Well, I'm sure it will be in there anyway.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question for clarification?
Yes.
Thank you for that. So my question is staff will be coming back to place their standard order of salt before September.
Okay, then,
So how will that affect?
Well, you said by September, so
By
it can be
September,
before.
But we typically get that locked-in rate for a salt purchase in the spring, and Mr. Deturi would be bringing that back shortly, so
well, then this needs to come back faster then.
Often the third Monday in April.
We'll mostly be done by the winter by then, hopefully,
Okay.
and have a
So
better
March?
picture.
Does that sound like it's doable?
Late April is the actual deadline for the lock-in for the salt. We had, for the salt through the state, through the cooperative bargaining agreement. That's where we get our best price.
How about we say by May? And that gives us any time in April to have it brought forward when you have your data that you need. But we know that this conversation in April will be contingent on commissioners having that information. Does that sound good to everybody?
I think I'd like to read then back
Please.
the motion. And this would require, if it's a friendly amendment, the agreement by Commissioner Stanley and Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. Otherwise, we have to go through the formal amendment process. And it's that the city manager be authorized to issue a purchase order to Detroit Salt Company for 500 tons of salt in the not-to-exceed amount of $38,815 with funds available in various street budgets, with the city manager to report on the future reduced use of salt discussion held with staff to be presented to the city commission no later than September 2025, or when staff requests the salt order for the next winter season, whichever is sooner.
Does that sound agreeable to, I know Mayor Pro
I thought
Tem
it
was going to make
I
that.
thought it had to be May.
Well, can we just make it May? I mean,
You can, I mean, it's just, it might be sooner that salt order could come before you, so I
well,
think it's
she's saying instead of
whichever.
September, but yeah, I agree. Because we read September in the motion, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
however you would like it.
yeah. Is that fair? Because it's by September, so it could be tomorrow if we really wanted it to.
Well, it better be before the next time that someone asks for salt.
And the salt, that's what it said, and the salt order is part of that as well. Okay. Is that agreeable then to Commissioner Stanley as well?
So I guess my question is, what do we do if 200 tons per lane mile? What amount reduction are we looking for? If we are asking them to report back on a possible reduction or an inability to reduce further, we need to provide a target reduction, don't we? Or otherwise, we're going to have this discussion that, sure, we've reduced the salt use by 40% from where we started from when this conversation began. That's insufficient. So what percentage or what metric ton, what are we looking for? What is the outcome we're looking for? Less? How much less? How do we measure that based on based on the weather conditions that we're having? So I guess I'm willing to welcome that modified amendment, but I also think that this is a quagmire of a continued discussion around, sure, you reduced it, but you didn't reduce it enough. We've had a 40% reduction. That's not enough. And so that is my concern, but I'm willing to accept that friendly amendment.
Commissioner Anderson.
Just to comment, I don't think it's a quagmire. I think it's a process of continuous improvement. I think until we have information, reliable information from experts in the field, that it's impossible to set.
Are our staff not experts in their field? And then if that's the case, when they request 1,200 tons of road salt and we cut it in half, are we not undercutting their expertise?
And are we not interested in using less salt?
We don't, That presupposes that we only use it because it's there, and that's the argument that's been going around and around. So can we call the question?
There's a motion to call the question, or there's a suggestion to call the question. Do we have, do I have to vote that, or is that?
You can either call the question if it's agreeable by the commission, or if there's a motion made and seconded, a simple majority requires to end debate and have a vote.
Did you agree to the amendment? Okay.
Okay. We'll call the question. I know Commissioner Warner has his
I
hand up.
object to calling the question.
Okay, then we'll call a vote. How many people would like to call the question?
Calling the question.
It means we vote right
You're,
now.
you're stopping discussion.
We're stopping discussion and having the vote.
That would end debate, and so therefore you'd have to vote on the motion without any further discussion.
Do you want to stay here
Okay, so we have to have a vote to call the question because the question, that's been challenged. So how many people would like to call the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Roll call.
And I do need a second to
Oh.
Commissioner Stanley's request to call the question, just as a
Second.
formality.
Very, okay. Commissioner Treadwell. And then we roll call that, please?
Yes, Commissioner Shaw,
No.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
No.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes.
and then Mayor Shamrow.
Yes.
So that motion passes, and therefore there can be no further discussion on this, and we have to go right to a vote on the motion that's pending before the city commission.
Okay, hold on. I might want to alter my vote. Does that mean there's no public comment on it?
We have to have public
Okay,
comment.
that's what I was going to want to make sure.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to open this up for public comment then.
Justin Reed, 630 Cottage Drive, apartment 1B. Whether the winters change, nobody can have unless somebody has a hotline number for Mother Nature. I mean, I don't think anybody in the city commission has the hotline for Mother Nature. But I just want to say is that the actions upon not going ahead and having salt, could endanger people at intersections. You know, I guess you would feel very horrible if somebody died in an accident because, well, they didn't put salt down. Also, just think about that. And I understand that the environment's important and everything, but so is safety. And I think safety outweighs sometimes on what we can do. And like I said, just think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment on this item?
Karen Roof. I own businesses downtown and have a home on Veterans Drive, 1421. And I understand the whole push to get to better science about this, but just saying use less when we haven't had this much snow or this much cold or this much weather in the last few years. Like, this has been a glorious and beautiful winter. And salt doesn't just disappear. So if we have extra because we bought it, great. We can still use less, but exactly what does less mean? And I do understand science. You know, instead of beating staff up, I think it is fair to, like, let's have an actual conversation about what that temperature and science, but they know, they're professionals. This is what they do. So I'm more concerned about myself, my family, my children, people I know, people I don't know, not getting into accidents. And if we get this salt and don't use it all, it doesn't just disappear. So I would rather have it and maybe not need all of it or use less of it. But if we're at zero, then there's a go forward of nothing, which is not great. I don't think the city of Traverse City, the constituents would really agree with having zero salt. So think about that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Now we have the vote without further discussion, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Werner?
No.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes.
and Mayor Shamro.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries for the repurchase of the salt and the required conversation to have this much heartier discussion before the next salt order.
Correct.
So with that, we'll move on now to item number 3, which is a request from Commissioner Warner to discuss the Grandview Parkway median. So I'll hand it over to you, Commissioner Warner.
Yeah, and it was, sorry, I have to find it. 'cause
That's okay.
This page won't open in my packet, so I had it open separately. It's in the packet, the email that I sent to the city attorney, just requesting her input as to what our options were, if this body should choose to limit the median to no wider than 6 feet between Division Street and M22. I asked her to advise, and she responded that, hey, how about I just put it on a future city commission agenda? And so that's it. It's on the agenda. And depending on the discussion, she said that she can assist formulating a motion. So I'd like to think that we'd be willing to at least have her explore that possibility, because to me, if we don't narrow that median, we're giving up parkland on the neighborhood side that we don't need to give up. Again, MDOT nearly won a national award for their 6-foot median over on the highway in Acme, which has a much higher speed limit and vehicles going much faster. So 6 feet, according to MDOT, is substantial enough. I know there were concerns by city staff about being able to park a truck on the median for mowing, but there are certainly options so we can avoid having to mow by not planting grass on the median, whatever that might be. So we can address that. I feel like we backed ourselves into a corner without exploring the options and what we were trying to achieve with that park space. And we ended up with a 12-foot median that will need to be mowed, which maybe that's not the best result when we could have additional park space on the neighborhood side. And so again, just asking for consideration of directing the city attorney to look into what our options are with MDOT. Thank you.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, in this first year as a city commissioner, there have been many disappointments, and none has been greater than the realization that we as elected officials don't have any power if we don't have the support of staff. The loss of parkland along Bay Street is one example of many. I fully realize that there aren't enough votes on this commission to pass a change order. And that's something that the city attorney did say that we could still do. And that may have been part of the reason why the motion wasn't made last September when Commissioner Warner brought this up. Even so, I regret not making that motion in September. I remember sitting there, knowing that the votes weren't there, not knowing quite what to do, but I was a little bit stunned. That was a stunning meeting. That was the meeting where the unexpected and not on our agenda insertion to rescind the city commission's approval of the master plan came up. That was when the master plan the abdication of the master plan took place. That was the weaponized design team speech from our city manager. I was stunned. But that's really not an excuse. We were elected to represent the city residents and their interests, and I feel like I failed that night. So I'd like to appeal to all of you now to think about that pedestrian refuge that is going in on that 12-foot median. Think about all pedestrian refuges and what they mean, and how you would feel if you were stranded on those 12 feet with your kids. Maybe there's a baby, maybe there's a dog, there are other people's kids, there are beach stuff, maybe there's a wheelchair, and the traffic is going by on each side because you didn't have enough time to get across the highway, which is why we have that pedestrian refuge in the plan right now. This was the design team's idea, that we needed to have a refuge because not everybody's going to be able to get across the highway. And I want you to think about that picture for a minute and think about what it would look like on the cover of the Wall Street Journal. And I'm not just worried about, these primo summer tourist destination reputation that we are experiencing right now. I'm worried about the potential millennials and Gen Zers who might want to move here and have their kids here, and what they would think. I just don't believe that huddled beach refugees in the middle of a highway will be attractive to parents of any age. This car-friendly, keep the traffic flowing, two-phase solution, that is what this is called, a two-phase solution. You can cross to the middle and you wait, and then you cross to the other side. This is a common failing in road design. If the non-driver can't cross in a timely manner, or heaven forbid is killed or hurt, we blame the victim rather than the road design. Road design too often encourages unsafe practices, and stranding people in the middle of a highway is, to me, the very definition of an unsafe practice. Can't we agree as a commission that getting people across the road in one go is the safer solution? I would urge you, please, to join me in a motion for a change order to reduce the median width to allow pedestrians to safely cross all lanes of the parkway in one single trip. And this motion will at the same time protect the parkland on Bay Street.
We've had some input here. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share or any questions?
I do want to note that the city attorney raised her hand. Just so you know.
Go ahead. I didn't see the hand raised. Go ahead, Lauren. First of all, thank you, Lauren, for joining us and not bringing influenza into the office.
Yeah, sorry everybody that I can't be there in person. I think with most of the folks at Willow Hill Elementary and the students and their families, we're having a lot of influenza A, so dealing with that at my house this week. Sometimes it's my job to tell folks what they may not exactly want to hear, and I just want to say, there's nothing in it for me either way to say one way or the other. I have looked and researched, and I have not found any documentation that suggests that there is parkland in between the Parkway and Bay Street. I've reviewed that again before this meeting just to quadruple check. And I also pulled out the plat maps that we have in the engineering office. We have all of the old plat maps. The MDOT right-of-way goes all the way from the lake side of the Parkway all the way to the north side of Bay Street. So in other words, the grassy strip in between Bay Street and the Parkway is completely within the MDOT's right-of-way. So I appreciate the idea of keeping green space there. And I just want to let you all know and the public know that I can't find anything that suggests it's parkland, number one. And number two, even if it were parkland, there's a charter provision that preserves parkland doesn't come into play unless the city is divesting some property interest in that parkland. And MDOT already has a right-of-way in that area. So they've not asked the city for any property interest. There's been no discussion of that whatsoever. So I just want to let folks know that, there may be many reasons to talk about the median in that area, but parkland isn't one of them that's on the table that the city commission can enforce in some way. So I think that's important for you and for the public to know that. And as far as the median goes, I mean, we can have further discussions with MDOT. I don't know who's in the room today. I did let Mr. Wagner know that this was on the agenda. I don't know if anybody from MDOT is there.
No one from MDOT is here.
Okay, thanks, Ben. You know, I'm not optimistic about having further discussions with MDOT. I guess that's just what I'll say from the discussions that I've had about further design changes. If it's the will of this commission, I'm certainly willing to take that direction, but I just want you to know that as well.
Commissioner Warner, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to pretend that I was an attorney by using the words parkland. I was using it strictly as a citizen, and I think most citizens view that space between the curb on the highway and Bay Street as park because they treat it as a park, even if it technically legally is not a park. And so I have no concerns whatsoever whether it's technically legally a park because the citizens treat it as a park. And I think there's value in maximizing available park space. And that's why I made this request. And so really it is about a change order or whatever the technical legal terms are to take to MDOT to see what our recourse is to potentially reduce that median width. Thank you.
Lauren, I have a question. At this point, let's say there was a motion to go to a change order or take some other when this is a project that's out for bid for MDOT. Realistically, is that as simple as here it is and MDOT saying, okay, thanks, and doing it or not doing it? Or, and I guess I would put this to the commission as well, is this something we're going to throw out there that is being suggested we throw out there just to see? Or is this something that we would want to take further legal action on? And at this point, if we wanted to force a hand, that would be potentially what we'd have to be looking at of using an opinion that we paid to have in our favor and going forward with that project that's supposed to start this spring. Some of the pre-work is also going to start in the next couple of weeks. So I guess I paint that legal picture for us, I guess I would say, of those courses, because I think that is important as we make decisions that would affect our taxpayer dollars as well.
Sure. So, and thank you for your comments, Commissioner Werner. I know that when people say parkland, their ears perk up. So I just wanted to make sure that I was being crystal clear about that. I think that, there's a range of items or of paths forward that the commission can take from, making a request to MDOT to take another look at the median, all the way to, if we want to talk still about the 1947 agreement, that's really going to, like we had this discussion last spring and April, that the other end of that spectrum would be, trying to get some sort of a court opinion that would direct MDOT in a different way. So along that spectrum of possibilities, I guess I'm just looking for, if the city commission wants me to take an action, to just let me know and give me some direction on what the commission expects me, to do going forward for that. Does that help? Did that answer your question, Mayor?
Yeah, got it started. Go ahead, Tim, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, and that, in my email, I said, can you please advise on options for the city commission? And then in your memo, you say, if the desire of the commission that I work on this matter, a motion would be appropriate. So to me, it's, yes, I'm very interested in you working on the matter to tell us, hey, like, here's options A, B, C. From one is just a 2-sentence letter to MDOT that says, pretty please, will you do this? To C, which is, we're going to go to court and do our best to get you to do this. And B is something in the middle. I guess I, without knowing any of what that range is, would hope that there's something that's somewhere between A and B, or, that's more than just pretty please will you do this, but it's not threatening legal action or taking MDOT to court, but somehow like, hey, it's a serious request, we really want you to make it 6 feet. Without saying pretty please, just we would like it to be 6 feet, and then see how they respond. And they might well say, no, we don't feel like it.
Thanks for clarifying that, Tim. I appreciate that. Mitch, you had your hand up?
Yes. Before my time on the city commission, I was part of a community engagement process with MDOT for the redesign of Division Street, because I live about 150 feet from Division Street. That was the process that happened several years ago that did result in a left turn lane at Division and 11th Street and a median put in. Through our discussions with MDOT, we as neighbors and community stakeholders negotiated to have at those crosswalks, notably at 11th, but also there's one at 12th, that there could be concrete planters on either side of the crosswalk in the median to provide a little more safety refuge, or to have some larger plantings there. That was something that MDOT was agreeable to and thought that would be good in terms of improving pedestrian safety. However, it was not incumbent upon MDOT or the neighborhood to install those concrete planters or to put in shrubberies or other vegetation. It was incumbent upon city parks and street staff, because they are the ones ultimately in charge of maintaining them, whatever vegetation is in that median space. And once again, city staff are not at the table aside from us as the city commission and our city attorney. We don't have the people that are actually going to be responsible for the maintenance of the median, whether it's 6 feet or 12 feet or some number in between, actually here. And as somebody, again, going back to my experience in state government, working and maintaining vegetation along busy highways, I can say that it does help to have enough width that you can actually safely operate. If our city staff are telling us 6 feet does not feel like a safe width, then I feel we should listen to them. Unless Commissioner Werner is personally volunteering and willing to sign a document saying that he will go out with his lawnmower and keep the grass trimmed, and he will go out and fix an irrigation head if it's busted, and he will go out and put in plantings or take out plantings. Otherwise, the people that are going to be doing the work have said indirectly what they feel is safe and what is unsafe, and we, through this motion, seem to be agreeing with that and trying to circumvent it.
Commissioner Warner.
I apologize for not being completely clear and speaking longer at the start, but my intent on this is that with a 6 foot width or less, that it be a no maintenance median. So nobody has to go out there. So whether it's like what MDOT constructed in Acme or some other no maintenance median, nobody has to risk their lives and go out there. And so that's my intent with 6 feet or less.
Thank you for that clarification. I have a question, I think, of the example that Commissioner Shaw put out, that the pedestrian refuge should be smaller when we think of people being stranded in the middle of the road. And I do know the one, if I'm thinking of the one, correct me if I'm wrong, in Acme, there's a guardrail on the other side of it. It's not a connection to a beach or a place that's kind of encouraging, or would invite movement, I should say, to the other side. You know, one of the reasons in a different presentation that was given for this width request was the example of a parent with a bike trailer on it. 6 foot wouldn't allow any space for that. Even 10 foot was going to be really tight for that kind of an example. And so I guess I'm asking for a little bit of clarification, because I'm trying to envision how a smaller median, like the one that was put in where there's no pedestrian traffic, I guess you could say, or not really likely any, is seen as safer, because that is one of the hesitancies I have had on it. Is we did see back when, on the east side, I'd see people crossing at Oak all the time and getting stranded and then getting through the next lane. And having a smaller median doesn't change the traffic flow. It's allowing a little bit more space for somebody to hang tight for a minute. So, and that's why I'm asking for some clarification on the vision that you were putting out, because you asked us to, and I appreciate that.
That there is no, I totally agree with Commissioner Werner, this is a no-maintenance median. I frankly think that putting flowers and trees and all that stuff in a median in front of the bay is gilding the lily. Why do we need to have all that stuff out there when we have the bay? No, my idea is you have a hawk signal, you get across the street. You are not refuging anywhere. You reduce that median so it's quicker to get across the street. You're not ever stranded in the road. It's not even a street, it's a highway. You're never stranded in the middle of the highway. You reduce the median so it's quicker to get across the highway, and you use a hawk signal so that everybody gets across.
Don't disagree about the hawk signal, so I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and
Tim.
just to expand on that, and why that, to me, I think that's Elmwood is different than Oak. Oak does not have a hawk signal, and so people do get stranded in the middle there. So maybe that at Oak has to be wider and have that offset and all those things. But if there's a hawk signal, the idea is get across that highway and make that crossing as short as possible.
And no pedestrian left behind.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that in your comments that you had made. So do we have other thoughts from other commissioners or any other further movement on this?
I mean, I'm okay with
Mayor Pro Tem?
being part of the ask, but also understanding that it's a nice request, and MDOT may say no. But I also think no matter what size it is, I'm going to see people out there trying to cross and stop right there. If there was no median and it was just a line, I've seen people stand. So
Yeah, every once in a while. Cherry Fest.
so people are going to play Frogger, and
Can I make a motion?
Well, can I ask a really quick clarifying, because I think it'll help. So, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, you were saying that you'd be willing to have an ask. What we've had here, and this is where I want to clarify, is if there is going to be an ask of the city attorney to do something, this is time sensitive, and the city attorney is a very busy person. I would like us to have a motion that doesn't say, come up with the best solution. I'd like us to state what we'd like. If this is the board wants to say, hey, put more than a pretty please in, but not a threat of legal action, let's have that in the motion. And Commissioner Warner has said 6 foot, you said 6 foot, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson has said he's not sure about a distance. Are you agreeing to 6 foot?
I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Okay, I just want to
But-
clarify before we get into horse trading in a motion and Benjamin's typing furiously on us.
But I'm not going to support a big drawn-out legal battle that doesn't have the likelihood of our success.
Well, twice the city attorney has said we can ask for a change order, so why
Yeah.
can't we just ask for a change order?
I'm
Nicely.
totally fine with that.
A pretty please is fine with me as well.
I mean, is that Lauren, you said that in the email that you would help with the wording on that for a motion that would be legally sound. And so what I'm hearing from the commission, and I want to make sure I'm clear on this as well as both leading the meeting and a voting member, that we would want to request a change order that is a request and just that. Is that correct? And then that would be the motion that we'd be kind of looking for.
If that's what I'm hearing, I think, and Benjamin, maybe you can help wordsmith for me a little bit too, since I'm not totally 100%.
Sure.
The motion would be that I would make a request to MDOT to reduce the median to 6 feet between Division and M72.
M22.
I'm 20.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
enough, yeah. We have a head nod of, but yes, 22.
So I think then the wordsmith, if you will, motion would be essentially what she just said, but that the city attorney be directed to send a request to the Michigan Department of Transportation to reduce the median on Grandview Parkway to 6 feet between Division and M22.
I think it would be helpful to have in there the words change order, because I think that's kind of the official.
Okay.
So we're requesting a change order?
Yes.
Is that correct, Lauren?
Sure.
Okay.
Got it. Is that a motion? I'm sorry, that's your
That's the-
question.
Heather
I'm sorry,
made,
Madam
Heather
Mayor.
made the
That is
motion.
my
She did a great
motion,
job.
yes.
Support.
Thank you. So we got a motion from Commissioner Shaw, and it's seconded by Commissioner Warner. Is there further discussion on this? Seeing none, is there public comment on this item?
Fred Bimber, 1223 Randolph Street, city resident. I am glad to see this motion. I would suggest that the motion further provide that the currently planned northerly boundary of the west lane, the westbound lanes of M72 in that area, retain their present location, and the southerly boundary of the eastbound lanes of M72 be moved northerly to accomplish what we hope to achieve with this reduction in median width. I would also simply respond to a couple comments made here by the city attorney. The point here is not the legalistic issue that this is dedicated parkland, but what we have south of M72, the Grandview Parkway in this area, is functionally a park. It's wonderful. It's adjacent to Darrow Park that's used by a lot of families with small children. It's an excellent place. The Tart Trail goes right down the middle of this de facto park, and anyone using that for biking or walking is separated from traffic. It's a beautiful, safe area. You have a view of the bay. We can put in a no-maintenance median area there that will save money in the long run. It will be perfectly functional for its main purpose, which is to separate eastbound and westbound traffic. And putting this forward as a solid request for a change order to the design of the highway at this point in time may actually save money. If we think about it, we'll end up using more of the existing roadway beds. You're going to have less subsoil that needs to be replaced. That was essentially MDOT's original plan for this. Originally, they were going to use the existing roadway beds for the new construction. It was the desire to put in a bike path extending up into Elmwood Township that has led to these complications. I commend each of you that's made a comment on this. This doesn't have to become protracted litigation, but it should be a solid and firm request. We should make clear to MDOT the city wants this change. We want to see this change order. Let's accomplish it. If I would ask, and this may be unusual, could I be included in the communications to MDOT about this, or simply make those communications public? Develop public confidence that the city staff, the city attorney, are really genuinely presenting this request to MDOT with the intention that it
Mr.
will be
Bimber.
accomplished.
Thank you, Mr. Member.
Justin Reed, y'all know me. So I want to go ahead and extend this. So on February 11th, there's going to be an open house over at MDOT's office at the Traverse City Center. For anybody who has concerns about the engineering and also the drawings for the project. So I would encourage people to go to that because that is a direct line with MDOT employees, with their engineers and everything. Now, I can see that if the city commission does say yes to this and they go ahead and they direct their attorney to make a change order, MDOT can say, well, we're not because we own that part of the right-of-way. Or maybe MDOT might say, okay, yeah, we can look at that. So my question is if MDOT says no to this, will you guys take legal action? Because that is something that is going to take a long time, and it's going to be drawn out, and it's ridiculous. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Doug Kimball, 523 North Spruce Street, Traverse City. Thank you, Commissioner Werner, for keeping this issue alive and for representing the best interest of Traverse City residents. So we have voiced our concerns and opposition to the Parkway being moved closer to our homes. I'm talking about Bay Street, Slabtown. So please hear me and believe me when I say it's called a Parkway, but it serves as a truck route. And it's just going to get busier and louder as we continue to develop with no end in sight. And take this from me, someone who sees and hears this truck route breakfast, lunch, dinner, whenever I'm at the computer. I'm looking right at it. And it's not just me. You have the signatures of over 100 residents that live right nearby by Bay Street. And MDOT claims the construction method will quiet the road noise, but it doesn't do anything about the engine braking, the loud exhaust, loud engines of the trucks, and I don't know if it'll stop the house shaking when a fully loaded log truck comes by. When we're outside talking to our neighbors, the noise will stop a conversation. Yet we're dismissed as whining complainers. But what we're doing is explaining what it's like to live next to this truck route. We're voicing our concerns to you so that you might support us, because this is going to affect us every day forever. We're just asking for a narrow or median or no median, or perhaps a median like on 31 in Acme, and possibly another national design award. It doesn't have to be grass, you know, it has to be mowed. It could be ornamental grass, could be concrete to cut down on the maintenance. So please show me that we who live right next to that are more important than a median. One commissioner on the Planning Commission designated Bay Street as a transitional neighborhood because in his words, he had to listen to our complaints for over a year about the truck route being brought closer to our homes. And the commissioner's reasoning for that designation is absolutely illogical. If any of you would like an explanation of what I'm talking about, please contact me and I'll show you exactly where this comes from. But the message I get from that is that don't voice your concerns too often or it might get worse for you. So crossing, you know, think about the Hall Street Hawk. There's no median there, and everything has proceeded
Mr.
just
Kimball,
fine.
thank you for your comments. Your
Thank
time
you.
has elapsed. Yes.
Any other comments at this time? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. I'm just going to say for the record, I'm going to join with Mayor Pro Tem Wilson's thoughts on this, that I'll be supporting this, but I will not be supporting any legal action or anything that might come after if there is a no. I'm happy to join in everybody in voting on that request, but that's where I think the conversation could shift again if that comes back again, if there's a no. So with that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Treadwell?
No.
Commissioner Werner?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
And Mayor Shamrow.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, thank you for that discussion, everyone. And now we'll move on to our appointments. We have Grand Traverse Commons, sorry, mine's loading now. Planning Commission, and this was Commissioner Warner, Anderson, and Treadwell. And since mine is loading, whoever is the chair, if you don't mind. Let's say you, Tim.
I may have been the chair. I apologize if I wasn't, and I'm taking somebody else's role. We had, I say it, and everybody says this too often it seems, but it's true, excellent candidates, and we are recommending Winnie Simpson. She's been involved, gone to many meetings over the years, most of the meetings over the years, and we thank Russ Sawyering for his service, and we know he's still available, and a lot of what we as the ad hoc discussed is what gets discussed at many ad hocs. It's that balance between institutional knowledge and somebody that's been part of something for a very long time versus somebody new that's been trying to get involved, who's been participating but not in an official appointed capacity, and when do we decide which one over the other? And in this case, Russ has had his chance. Russ is great, but we also know that he'll be around as a resource if we need him, and so we are recommending Winnie.
Thank you. Did you want to make the motion, or do you want somebody else to?
Sure, I will.
Thank you.
That Winifred Simpson be appointed to a 3-year term expiring May 14th, 2027, seat previously held by Russ Sawyering on the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission, as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioner Treadwell, Commissioner Anderson, and Commissioner Warner.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Any comments? Mitch?
Yes, I am now the chair of the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission, and I can agree that Winnie has been in attendance for many of her meetings, including our meeting last week.
Great. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll go on to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority appointments, and this was Commissioners Warner, Stanley, and Treadwell. I don't know if it needs explanation or if somebody just wants to make the motion.
I'll make the motion that Aaron Critcher be appointed.
Critcher, yes.
Critcher be appointed to a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2027, seat previously held by John Peck on the Grand Traverse County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Commissioner Treadwell, Commissioner Stanley, and Commissioner Warner.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw. Any further comments on this item? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we'll move right along to our appointments to Brown Bridge Advisory Authority. Sorry, I'm not talking very well at this point. Apologies, everyone. And that, let's see.
It's an ad hoc
Yeah,
interview committee.
Ad hoc interview. Oh, thank you, sorry. This is where I'm like, that's what threw me off, is the wording slightly different. It's because it's a totally different motion. Apologies, everybody. So we're going to establish an ad hoc committee. Does someone want to make that motion?
I move that the City Commission Ad hoc Interview Committee be established to make a recommendation regarding one appointment to the Brown Bridge Advisory Committee, term expiring October 4th, 2027, previously held by Denny Scrutato, and that Commissioner Treadwell, Commissioner Anderson, and Commissioner Stanley be appointed to such committee with Commissioner Treadwell as chair.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Any other
With-
comments on this?
With the additional comment that Denny Scrutato has served on this board for about 20 years now, so
Yeah.
I think she deserves some commendation for the degree of service that she's put to the city.
Absolutely. She's been a stalwart on that and very appreciated on that. Any other comments on this? Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, and this is just a formality of reestablishing the city commission as ad hoc on streets, complete streets. They expire every 6 months, so no changes here, but we do need someone to make the motion to reapply it.
I'll read really fast.
Thank you.
I recommend that the City Commission Ad hoc, or I move that City Commission Ad hoc Committee on Complete Streets be reestablished consisting of members pro tem, Mayor Pro Tem Mark Wilson, I guess I can't read very fast anymore either, Commissioner Tim Werner and Commissioner Heather Shaweth, Mayor Pro Tem Wilson as chair, with the committee to expire August 12th, 2025.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Shaw and Commissioner Warner. Any other conversation on that? Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that, everyone. And we'll move on to reports and correspondences, and I'll just start at the end with Tim and go down if anybody has any reports they want to make, since we've reestablished that. Thank you all. Go ahead, Tim.
It's not making a report, but I actually clicked on the reports, which I don't do every meeting, I'll say out loud. But that TCO 717, it's East Front Street, and I think it had maybe been on an agenda but pulled previously, and it has parking every other side depending on the day of the week, but it's ending, but it's reverting to no parking. And so I don't want to discuss it tonight, but just maybe we bring this back in the coming months, like the whole,
Yeah.
why? Like,
Sure.
sort of like, I understand like it reverts to what it was, but maybe we want to discuss, well, like why? Why does that make the most sense? That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Warner, definitely. Any other reports? All right, Jackie?
A quick update on the Planning Commission, meeting tomorrow evening at 6. Bylaws will be up for a vote. The changes were to restore the student liaison that was inadvertently left off of last year's bylaws, and adding a Grand Traverse County Planning Liaison, a non-voting position, to the commission. You'll find in the packet that goals for 2025 have been clarified, and they include items such as improved communication, expanded housing opportunities, the riparian buffer ordinance, short-term rental ordinance refinements, some zoning amendments that are master plan driven, like development corridors, more housing density, doubling of density in R2 zones from 2 to 4 dwellings per lot is up for further discussion. And then the introduction of the capital improvement plan for 2025-26. And there is going to be some more discussion. I understand that ClearGov software is now being used, and it may be manipulatable to facilitate decision-making in a way that we weren't able to previously. So I'm going to be asking for some help with creating some rather executive-level summaries of the capital improvement requests that hopefully will save all of us time. The fair warning, the Planning Commission packet for tomorrow is 288 pages, and most of that is the capital improvement proposals. So let me know if you have any questions, please.
Thank you to you and Commissioner Treadwell for the light reading that you're doing in preparation on our behalf. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to wish the mayor a happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Gosh, happy birthday.
Thank you all.
Stole my thunder.
They used to print out the capital improvement pack. You had to bring it home. It was this brick. I just want to remind everybody up here and everybody out there that the Brown Bridge Trust Fund is looking for ideas about how to spend money. So please, if you get the Bay brief, there's a link in there. You can choose your neighborhood and make your suggestions right there very easily.
Yep. Or you can just go to the website and click on news, and there's a link right there.
Okay.
Great.
Echoing what Commissioner Warner said, I'd like to wish the mayor a happy birthday. Also updates, though I hinted at it earlier, we did have the Joint Planning Authority, or Grand Traverse Commons, met last week, and we had a rather short agenda. We elected officers. I ended up as chair. Had updates on some water pressure issues, which fortunately means that it does look like we will be able to have full water pressure at the barn, so you can actually flush a toilet there.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that update.
Though, as we're all aware, there is broader conversations between the city and Garfield Township about water.
Yes, there are. Thank you for that.
That, as I was reminded multiple times at the reception on Thursday, and then the Grand Traverse Northern Michigan Policy Conference, some people are not happy about.
Thank you for sharing that. We are aware. Moving on to, that was our report, so thank you. I'm enjoying that we brought this back. Thank you, everybody, for coming prepared. So with that, we will now move on to general public comments. So this can be about anything at all, and it doesn't have to be any of the agenda items from this evening.
Justin Reed. There was talk about the homeless shelter, about the safe harbor, about moving it from that location. It's a great idea, but like with every great idea, you have to have details. And unfortunately, there is nowhere else in Traverse City to move that homeless shelter unless someone else is going to give up property in Traverse City. And also, if they even did give up the property at Traverse City, is the zoning might not allow it. That's what the CCC has ran into over on the Mitchell Creek property in Garfield Township. That is industrial, commercial zoning. Unless Garfield Township would go ahead and give a variance on it, there's nothing else. So I keep on hearing about, well, we have to figure out where to move the homeless shelter at. Nobody has said anything about within Traverse City. There's other townships, but I don't see any kind of conversation that the other townships have said. Garfield Township is willing to say, we have a homeless shelter, that's Goodwill Inn, sorry. And so, but, you know, hopes and dreams, everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any other public comment? Seeing none, any final comments from commissioners? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just final comment. All I was going to say before, at the end of that conversation about salt, was that I'd be happy to give Mr. Duturi 1,000 tons of salt every time he asks, and would have tonight if there had been included some reference to continuous improvement, like what's better, how are we being smarter about it. So I'm not looking for, this is all I'll give you. I'll give them and vote for as much as they want if they're doing better with it.
Thank you, Commissioner Warner. All right, seeing none other, then I am going to adjourn this meeting. Everybody have a great night. Stay safe out there.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know I said I'd bring popcorn.